Welcome, my name is Amy Brown. I got my master's at the University of Florida about a year ago, and I'm halfway through my PhD program. I'm here to share with you today a little bit about an ancient philosophy, which is relevant, especially because it was founded just down the road in Athens. This was a side project of mine that was born out of my master's thesis, and that work I presented last year at AIAEE on the internet. So I took that and had a little fun with some workshops, and I'm here to present to you today what we discovered in those workshops. But first, how many of you made it to Athens and got to walk around and explore? Yeah, a little bit? Did anybody find themselves looking at a sign that said the painted porch? No? Yes, for real. Like, can you please tell me more?
No. I was like, okay.
Well, like,
I remember it, but I can't.
You can't tell. That's okay. Okay.
I remember it.
So it's not actually in this photo, which was very sad. The couple of days that I had in Athens, I was able to get a tour with a philosophy professor that was focused on Stoicism. And we're in ancient Agora here, looking up at the Parthenon, and I'm asking him, like, well, so where's the Stoa? So Stoicism is named after a Stoa, which is also a porch where the philosophy was founded. The particular porch is the painted Stoa that was decorated with paintings and artifacts from battles and times in ancient Greece. And I regret I don't have the next picture in here. I realized that after I'd already given you my file. But anyways, it's not here. We had to walk amongst all of these little restaurants, and I'm telling my tour guide, like, I don't think it's back here. Like, I've already been in all of these places. I'm pretty sure it's not here. And then, boom, there's like this little sign and construction everywhere, and it's the most nondescript, unexciting thing in all of Athens, I think. But we found it. We found the actual painted porch where Stoicism was founded, which was really exciting. So as I mentioned, last year at AIAEE, what I presented was the comparison of results from Stoicism assessment to emotional intelligence. So Stoicism is a philosophy, but we use the word often to be stoic as emotional repression and something that you don't want to do, the opposite of being emotionally intelligent. Myself personally, I have a positive relationship with Stoicism. It was really beneficial for me in my professional career. And so when I started in academia and I saw this negative connotation, I begged Dr. Stedman to please entertain me in my crazy idea to explore this philosophy in the context of leadership. And since it has this association with emotion, we lined it up against emotional intelligence. The findings were pretty predictable because all of the assessments that are made to measure stoicism or people's level of being a stoic are, I don't fear death, I don't cry in movies, so nothing really to do at all with the philosophy itself. But regardless, still interesting and gave us a place to start to have this conversation. So I'm making my assumptions based off of a short review of the literature that the general population shares the dictionary definition of what it means to be stoic, which is having emotional repression. But I need to check myself on that, so I secured a small scholarship from the Center for Leadership at the University of Florida, designed to support students who want to help build resilience in ag and natural resource professionals. And so what I did is I created a little workshop about the philosophy of Stoicism and went out and gave 3 different sessions to Florida agriculture professionals to help build their resilience levels, but also to collect some data on what do people actually think about this thing to be stoic. And then after they get to learn about Stoicism from somebody who loves it so deeply, what do they have to say about it? So that's what we're doing here today. The workshop was a basic Stoicism 101 workshop, participation, presentation. And I say basic on purpose. The philosophy itself is very broad and very deep. And I had this conversation with my tour guide. The issue with philosophers talking about their philosophies that they love is nobody understands what they're saying. It's really abstract, it's super detailed, and it's hard to contextualize and apply to your life. So I created a very watered down version of that was digestible, and actually as a product of Dr. Roberts, one of Dr. Roberts' courses. And the 2 things, or rather 5 things that we focused on is eudaimonia, arete, and then these 3 disciplines. So Stoicism is all about achieving eudaimonia, which is living your best life, like human flourishing, joy, and happiness. Nothing to do with emotional repression, right? And then arete is excellence in everything, and that's actually born out of Aristotle. So all philosophy is born up here with Socrates himself, and then it bridges out from that different bodies of knowledge that are trying to get at that same happiness and living your best life and being the best at it. Stoicism specifically uses these 3 disciplines to keep us on track to do that. And we all know that we would love to live our best life and be super happy and fulfilled, but there's life. And so Stoicism is designed, it's a practical philosophy, to keep us on track to doing that. And so the workshop taught participants about these 3 disciplines, and then we applied those disciplines to customized case studies relevant for those different groups, which was super fun to write and really interesting to watch people react because it was very personal. A lot of COVID, hurricane type case studies there. And I'm sorry, I don't have time to go into any of that, but if you would like to learn more, I am doing a professional development session at 4 o'clock that resembles what we covered with those different groups. So specifically, the study looked at individuals' perceptions of Stoicism and their Stoic behaviors, and do any applications exist for leaders in the ag industry? Sidebar that I would talk your ear off is Stoicism is founded in living in accordance with nature. So at some point in my career, I would really love to tease out this connection that I believe is super strong with the ag industry, people in the ag industry who are working in nature and suffer some of the things that can happen to you because you're working in nature, but also this deep appreciation for Mother Nature and those systems that are involved and their place in that, because that is very much what the Stoics were also after. Okay, so we had 26 participants across the 3 different groups with Florida Ag Leadership Groups. Phenomenological design, inductive coding. There are, as you can imagine, not any existing theories that are saying this is what Stoicism is or how it shows up. So we're really, at this point in my career, both as an academic and in this area, feeling around in the dark. So inductive coding, and then we did 3 rounds of open, axial, and selective to come up with our themes. So we found we concluded that there were 4 different themes. We saw a change in perception, some cognitive restructuring and accommodation being made by participants, an acknowledgement of pre-existing Stoic traits and their usage, which was really fascinating, and then also this desirability and practical application of what it means to be Stoic. So the first one, that change in perception, was pretty excellent. We spent the first few minutes just open discussion about have you heard of what it means to be Stoic? What does that mean to you? Do you know anybody that is Stoic or you would call, and why? And then at the end, asking those same questions and getting an obvious change in perception. So saying, I would have thought Stoicism was more of a negative, but now I can see the value in these disciplines. Again, the mention of negative adjectives to describe it. And now I feel like I have positive ones if we came back and were asked the same question. The next one, cognitive restructuring and accommodation, was, as a facilitator, my favorite. Like watching them process and also verbally process, like, wait a second, this thing that I had all of these assumptions built around is totally shifting because I'm able to see how I'm actually doing some of this or where this could be really useful for my life. So when we went through the case studies, when they were, as they're applying those disciplines to those case studies, One of the disciplines was assent, and so this person's talking about, and that's a little challenging to read, so I'm sorry, it was better on my computer. You can transition to assent or actually to action, which is another discipline, and letting the opponent, in this case, voice their opinion to be fair to everybody, but then you spring into assent and you have to think before you speak. So they're just processing, wait a second, these are multiple disciplines that I can use before I jump in and either rebuttal this person or have a reaction I would regret. And then in their own personal life, which is my personal favorite because of the Winn-Dixie reference, one participant is applying the knowledge to a time she got out of her car at Winn-Dixie and it was pouring rain and lightning, and she was like, you know what, it's just water. This isn't burning oil, it's water, and my shoes are gonna dry. So having this, I'm super frustrated and I hate today and now I'm here and I'm gonna get wet and I'm gonna die because it's lightning, and she was like, but I could see how this would help me cool down a little bit. And then the acknowledgement of pre-existing Stoic traits and their usage. So again, just as I was doing a little bit of lecturing to them and some questioning, then witnessing, or sorry, not witnessing, admitting, like, I actually do this stuff. So when I said leadership, I see it so much because I've been through different leadership trainings. But this is the one thing they say is to take control of what you can, put it into action, and help, and you can solve this problem, and you can even do it even-keeled. And I never thought of it like that. And then another one I liked was, I was already doing something and I didn't know there was a name for it, which is a total win, because as soon as we can get people to realize that this is something they're doing, they're going to take that interest and we're going to want to learn more. Controlling yourself, controlling your emotions, not reacting to everything, and I think it's neat that it has a name. And then that desirability of practical application, which I was really glad, because the intent of the workshop was to help these people, not just collect my own data and share about something I love. So just giving a template to work on a short fuse, and being a practicing Stoic and realizing you can take these qualities and implement them in your life and reach your goals. So part of the workshop, I had participants talk about what their version of eudaimonia was, and then at the very end, after we had worked with these disciplines and applied them to case studies, then they took a moment to reflect and say, okay, how could this actually help me in achieving my eudaimonia? So a few things. My favorite, one of the challenges of this has been relating to people in agriculture about already an obscure philosophy, not just philosophy, but an obscure one. But last week I was helping a classmate of mine, and we were doing some interviews up in Georgia, speaking with a dairy farmer and asking him what are the skills that he thinks are lacking in college graduates. So she's in ag education and I'm just helping on this study. And he hemmed and hawed for a little bit, but when he really got down to it, he was like, these kids don't have grit. They don't know what it takes. They don't want to sustain the hard times. They don't want to keep showing up. They don't want to endure what this requires. And as he was talking, I was like, oh my gosh, like if I had more time, I could just tell you I have the thing for you. And then I think the neat thing about Stoicism, and it's a scale, you know, it's a mindset, it's a worldview. You don't have to subscribe to all of the things about Stoicism. You can take a little bit of what you want. And whatever helps you the best. So in this case, Stoicism has been casually talked about as a tool to combat burnout and build resilience by medical field experts. It's a far cry, but I do appreciate that someone is introducing burnout and resilience in academic literature. If you got out your device and Googled Stoicism and leadership, you would see a whole slew of articles on Fast Company and Entrepreneur and Forbes. So it's no secret to that population, but we haven't been able to operationalize it and really look at it and how can this apply. So those are a couple of things that we could easily spend many years on doing. I would love, I doubt I'll have the time, but I think a longitudinal study with this group would be really wonderful. Everybody took home a note card like this with 3 disciplines and their eudaimonia, and I was like, hang this up at your desk to remind you, like, how to apply some of these things. So getting back and talking to those people if that actually worked, or if they noticed Stoicism or ways that people were practicing it in their lives. And then the use of the case studies was really entertaining and very meaningful. So just continuing to explore the use of those in transferring information. And that, I believe, is it.
Thank you.
There's the nondescript area of the painted porch.
Thank you for your presentation. I think that we sometimes in agricultural leadership have the tendency to try to look for new things or like innovative things that we're trying, as opposed to looking back at history sometimes to see how things fit. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing and kind of what that looks like. I started off with questions. I'm curious if you saw or would believe that there are any varying differences in the individuals participating based upon how they feel about this topic or how they relate to the topic, based on maybe where they're at in their career level, or also what type of a specific position they're working within the agricultural industry. You know, that's a wide gamut of individuals. So did you see any differences, or what did that look like?
Yeah, and halfway through, so the first group was women, all women, Cattle Women's Association, excuse me. At first, incredibly resistant, not interested. Took a little bit of being more personal, sharing. I grew up on a farm. You know, it's hard to be the student from the University of Florida who gets invited in, and everybody has to like give this girl an extra hour of their time. And once we got over that, and I loosened up a little bit, cracked some jokes, and asked them more about the problems that they were experiencing in their life, we transcended that. The next group was a similar age. I could not get there. And I talked to the person that helped coordinate these 3 different groups, and she had commented that it was the end of the week, it was late at night, there was a couple storms for people to arrive, so they were just burnt out. And then the last group was young Florida farmers and ranchers, and they were all about it. So the younger, if you wanted to generalize, you could, but that first group of older women, like, really ate it up. And so it's that second one that sort of threw a wrench in things. Yeah, so I can't say. But for classic facilitation, you know, barriers and where people are at and what's going on. Yeah, yeah. Good question, though. Yeah.
Other questions? Have you looked at Stoicism and growth mindset, and is there any sort of correlation between them or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Can you share some thoughts?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well. Yes. Yeah. 100%. And earlier today, Dr. Stedman sent me an article on Fast Company. It was talking about remote work and like what leaders need to be doing to prepare their teams to adapt to that kind of stuff. And you know, once you see the light, I guess, you know, for me with Stoicism, you see it everywhere. And to your point, Sarah, thank you for your comment out of the gate, is when we are students and we want to have an impact and we want to be sexy and exciting and look at this new area, I found myself being like, there are way smarter people than me who have already been on Earth. Like, what are we not thinking about, you know? And that drew me to this. And, you know, stuff like a growth mindset or resilience all has themes that come from these places. Like, we're having a lot of the same cognitive processes over the millennia, you know, and so it's just kind of different takes on it. But absolutely, there's a lot of crossover there. Yeah. Portia, hey.
I'm wondering if there's any connection, thinking about growth mindset, to emotional intelligence to Stoicism?
Yeah.
Is there a correlation there?
Yes, yeah, which is why the first study was so comical.
Yeah.
And we knew that, you know, based off of the instrument. And so now the next big question is, do we build an instrument that's more grounded in the philosophy itself so we can start kind of picking away at some of that? I have an article, a theoretical piece that's drawing some of those correlations between those bigger concepts and leadership like growth mindset and emotional intelligence. But again, it's just me, you know, and I love this idea of like hard data and information, so yeah. Yes, Dr.
I'm curious to think about how Stoicism might be received amongst different populations. So I'm thinking about specifically subsistence farmers or farmers that are really susceptible to climate changes, and whether Stoicism is a theory, as a philosophical basis that may not fit well with the reality of somebody whose livelihood can upend really quickly based on policy, based on climate, based on all these other things. And I wonder if it has a place there. So I'm just posing that question to you.
I think with the right presentation, and not like literal presentation, but the right communication of the philosophy, yes. So like one of the most well-known Stoics was Epictetus, whose name is literal slave. So that's not even an actual name, it's the meaning of it's the name of what it is to be a slave. And so individuals like that over the course of time have looked to this philosophy to try to successfully get through how do I continue to live and want to be a good person when all of these really nasty things are happening to me that I have no control over. Mm-hmm. So with the right approach, I think the audience you're describing is the audience that could benefit from something like this. The way to do it without like coming in and the whole savior complex is incredibly delicate. So I want to acknowledge that, but then also honor what the philosophy is about and like who has used it over time is for the very thing that you're talking about. I think it's all just a matter about how that is presented to them.
It'd be interesting to see the correlations of personal resilience
yes.
and the measurements of their as well.
Yeah,
cool.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Any further discussion can be discussed at your professional development session later. Thank you. Thank you again, Amy.